This is Hashtag History episode 108. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And here we are nearing the end of yet another season. It's always right around this point that I get this kind of bittersweet feeling. It's somewhere around the 8th or so episode of every season that my brain needs a break from all of the research, but my heart still wants more.
Your heart goes on.
The heart does go on, in fact. If you've been with us a while, you know that we like to bring on a special guest to help us close out each season of the podcast. So be sure to stay tuned all the way to the end of next week's episode, because that's when we will be announcing this season finale special guest. And this one's huge.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. I still have not fully wrapped my head around this season's finale guest.
Uh-huh.
But for this week, it's just the two of us. So sorry about that. This week, we will be discussing the 1968 Olympics, the Black Boycott, and the Black Power salute seen around the world. On October 16th, 1968, two African-American Olympic athletes, Tommie Smith and John Carlos, who had just won gold and bronze, respectively, in the 200-meter sprint, took their place on the winner's podium and each raised a black-gloved fist into the air as the United States National Anthem played. This act of protest on behalf of human rights would lead to booing and hissing from the audience and the eventual expulsion of both athletes involved. However, this image of Smith and Carlos with fists in the air would go down in history and would become one of the most iconic and most influential incidents in sports history. We have so much to talk about this week.
We do.
So let's first talk about this cocktail.
Love it.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah.
And this is Hashtag History,
the podcast for both history nerds and history haters alike,
where we dive into history's greatest stories of controversy, conspiracy, and corruption.
Thank you to this week's cocktail sponsor, Miss Local Lou from the Local Lou podcast herself. Lou is a big supporter of Hashtag History and even had us on her podcast a while back. We talked about the Dakota War of 1862, so be sure to check out that episode on her podcast. Again, it's called Local Lou.
And she's really awesome and so supportive of the podcast. And we had a lot of fun on that guest episode.
Yeah. And she left us a very sweet comment saying, life is better with a cocktail and some corruption.
I love that. That needs to be on a shirt.
Yeah. Always exciting to hear the topic when a new episode drops. Cheers. Clinks to Luscious Lou cocktails.
Oh, cute. Because Leah had put together like a personalized cocktail for that guest episode and it was called the Luscious Lou. That's so cute.
That's right. I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this week's cocktail is called the Fist Fight.
That's good.
Now, before you come at me about how it relates to this week's topic, let me explain.
Okay.
When I first heard that this was the topic that Rachel would be covering today, the immediate image that came to my mind was the infamous photo, which you already kind of mentioned, of two black athletes standing in first and third place on the Olympic podium, fists in the air, heads down.
Mm-hmm.
So the fist fight.
It's perfect. I love it.
Yeah. So the fist fight contains equal parts of peach schnapps, cranberry juice, pineapple juice, absolute currant vodka, which could not find.
Yeah.
Even at my beloved Total Wine,
couldn't find
that carries everything, they were like, what are you talking about? And then they were like, what's the flavor profile? We can help you find an alternative. And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I found out currants are either somewhere between like raisins, possibly.
Okay.
Or berries of some sort.
Okay.
So I got blueberry vodka.
I love it. That sounds great.
As a substitute. And then the last ingredient, equal parts, is raspberry vodka. So there's a lot of different types of vodka.
For
and
sure.
Schnappies.
Uh-huh. There's a lot of ingredients.
Lots going on. And
it looks gorgeous.
It looks beautiful. It's pink. And it has a little frozen peach floating in there.
I love it.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's really, really, really good. It's very peachy.
Yes.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
This is very easy to drink.
And there's a lot of alcohol in it.
Yeah.
You know those little like little baby alcohol like that people have on planes and stuff? That's what I bought because I was like, I'm not gonna buy like an entire bottle of peach schnapps that I probably won't drink a lot of. And same with especially the blueberry vodka. Like, when am I ever gonna drink that? So I bought just a bunch of peach schnapps, a bunch of the blueberry vodka.
It was cute.
You and I both had the little baby raspberry vodka bottles.
It was all put together with baby bottles.
And so between our two drinks, there's 3 of those little baby
my God,
shooter vodka whatever bottles.
So it's strong.
But it doesn't taste overly
strong. But it doesn't taste overly strong.
It already hit Rachel.
Yeah, it's already hit me. I'm giving this a 10.
I would too.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Refreshing, summery.
Yeah. No negative thoughts. I feel like normally we have a cocktail and there's like 10% of something I would change.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change anything.
I love it.
I love it.
Great.
All right.
Okay. Easy.
Easy peasy.
Beautiful.
Cover girl. Okay. Before we dive all the way into this episode, I wanted to give a little plug for myself. I've actually researched and covered this topic before. I wrote an article for Inside History magazine called Shut Up and Dribble with the question mark at the end. I feel like that emphasis is important, in which I dove heavily into the Black Power salute that occurred during the 1968 Summer Olympics and then applied it to more contemporary examples of athletes peacefully protesting, such as Colin Kaepernick and LeBron James. So if you're interested in reading that article, you can order a copy of Inside History magazine online. And the article that I wrote is in issue number 7. It's called Protest, Revolt, and Reform. Now back to the show.
Okay.
Back to the show.
Shut up and podcast.
We have to start first with the political and social climate leading up to the 1968 Olympics. And I know that things are awful right now in 2022.
Yeah.
I'm not denying that because I'm feeling it in my bones every single day.
In your uterus, really.
Mostly in the uterus, occasionally in the bones. But when I hear from people of usually like my parents' generation or older than that, say things like, wow, the world is such a bad place today. Things used to be so much better. I'm always like, but they weren't. No. I mean, things change and we've seen progress in some ways. Regression, certainly, in other ways. But when I think back to the 1960s, for example, I mean, shit was wild then, too.
More than wild.
More than wild.
Abhorrent.
Abhorrent is a great word for it. And that's really important to discuss in relation to the background and context of today's story. The same year as the Black Power salute at the Olympics was also the same year as the tragic assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy. And that's something, I mean, just every time someone says like things are so bad today, yes, they are. I would agree with you. Yeah. But to say they're better than they were, like there used to be like assassinations of American public figures like every couple months in this time period here. In response to King's murder, the civil unrest that already existed in the country became that much more evident. Riots and protests would emerge in more than 100 cities across the United States. This public response to his death would lead to nearly 30,000 arrests as well as the deaths of more than 40 people. Kennedy's assassination, only 2 months later, further deepened the feeling of social unrest and distrust. As political scientist Ross Baker said, quote, perhaps if Robert Kennedy's murder hadn't occurred so hard on the heels of Dr. King, the sense of national desperation would not have been so acute, unquote.
Yeah.
And maybe one day on this podcast, we'll dive into the way King's and Kennedy's assassinations have oftentimes been combined because of how close in time they were to one another. And because most people believe, both men were fighting for roughly the same things.
Yeah.
Although if we do dive further into it one day, I would love to highlight that although Kennedy was responsible for some pretty major advancements for Black Americans under his leadership, he was also responsible for the FBI wiretapping Dr. King. We would also dive into the fact that the two men, King and Kennedy, could hardly be considered friends. Regardless of this, the combination of these two assassinations, in addition to the lingering trauma from the assassinations of John F. Kennedy and Malcolm X in the years prior, really, really distressed Americans, for lack of a better, more dynamic word. It's also important to note the way that Robert Kennedy's assassination in particular significantly altered the course of history in another regard that was causing a lot of social and civil unrest at the time. You see, many historians believe that had Kennedy lived and become president, America would not have been involved in Vietnam as long as we were. By 1965, the United States was fully engaged in regular bombings of Vietnam, something that millions of Americans protested. In fact, between October and November of 1969, approximately 15 million Americans would protest the war in Washington, D.C., marking one of the largest protests in American history. And finally, just a year before the infamous Black Power salute incident that we will be discussing shortly, world-renowned boxing champion Muhammad Ali made his stance on the Vietnam War known when he refused to join the U.S. Army and fight in the conflict. Ali has a really important quote about this that I'm going to read. In this quote, he does use the N-word, and the use of that word is important to the power of the quote. So I'm going to read the quote, but we'll be giving a silent pause at the point in which he uses that word. He said, quote, "My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother or some darker people or some poor hungry people in the mud for big, powerful America. And shoot them for what? They never called me They never lynched me. They didn't put no dogs on me. They didn't rob me of my nationality, rape and kill my mother and father. Shoot them for what? How can I shoot them poor people? Just take me to jail," unquote. And the U.S. almost did just that. The eventual 3-time world champion and former Olympic gold medalist would be convicted of draft evasion, sentenced to 5 years in prison, fined $10,000, and banned from boxing for 3 years for his refusal to serve in the military as part of a war he didn't believe in.
Go Muhammad.
Yes. We have a picture of him in our guest bathroom. Yeah,
yes.
We do.
He looks down on me every time I pee.
Me too. So all of this is really the social and political climate that Americans were in leading up to the 1968 Olympics. So let's shift our focus now to Tommie Smith and John Carlos, the two people at the center of this monumental moment in history. While both were students at San Jose State University,
what up, CSU?
they became leaders in a group founded by former athlete and sociology professor Harry Edwards. This group was called the Olympic Project for Human Rights, or the OPHR.
Did you know that San Jose State University's mascot is the banana slug?
It's the banana slug?
Yeah, they were banana slugs.
Absolutely did not know that. What?
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz is the banana slug.
Yeah, I got Santa Cruz and San Jose mixed up. I'm sorry.
I'm still shocked.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. They were the Spartans, actually.
The
San Jose
Spartans.
Yep.
Okay. Go Spartans.
Not slugs.
Not the slugs. The primary goals of this group, the OPHR, were to protest racial segregation in sports, calling for the equal treatment of Black athletes, and advocating for the employment of more Black coaches in the Olympics. At a time when Black athletes like Jackie Robinson were breaking through the white barrier in professional sports.
Killing it, really?
Yes, killing it.
Exceeding it by a lot.
Yes. The OPHR sought to remind Americans that these accomplishments did not mean that racial inequality no longer existed within sports. Initially, the OPHR intended to boycott the Olympics altogether, and some Black athletes did just that. But for Smith and Carlos, they chose instead to compete in the games and to use this public platform as a way to further push the project's objectives. The 1968 Summer Olympics were held in Mexico City, making these the first Olympics to be held in Latin America and the first in a Spanish-speaking country. The 1968 Olympics was also unique in that this would be the second Olympic Games in which South Africa was banned from participating, a ban that would not be dropped until the 1992 Olympics. You see, South Africa was under white minority rule and the institution of apartheid, which denied equal rights to any South Africans that were not white. This meant, particularly in relation to their participation in the Olympic Games, that athletes from South Africa were split into segregated teams, and South Africa only brought white athletes and all white teams to the Olympics. In response to this, the International Olympic Committee said, no thanks, and banned them from participating in 1964.
Listen, the International Olympic Committee is by no means perfect.
Absolutely not.
But that's one thing where it's like, kudos to you. And also, don't really get why you would be not bringing athletes who would possibly win you gold medals.
100%.
Like,
you're hurting yourself.
You're hurting yourself.
I know.
It just doesn't make sense.
And the fact that this lasted until 1992 is a little mind-blowing as well.
Yeah, we were born.
We were born, yes. The fact that it took them that long to get it together is outrageous. I appreciate what you just said, too, because I do think it's interesting context that the, International Olympic Committee, at least performatively or at face value, show that they were committed to racial equality when we're about to talk about
the fact that they're not, or they weren't.
They certainly did not demonstrate that they were in this particular instance that we're just about to talk about.
Yes.
On October 16th, 1968, Tommie Smith and John Carlos, the two American athletes that we previously discussed, they competed in the 200-meter sprint. Smith won and set a world record when he completed the sprint in just 19.38 seconds.
Very impressive.
At 20.06 seconds was Australian athlete Peter Norman, and in third place at 20.10 seconds was Carlos. Mm-hmm. Following the competition, as these three athletes were preparing to take the winner's podium, they were talking amongst themselves about how they were going to use their platform to bring awareness to the human rights cause that they stood behind. We're going to look at the infamous picture from this incident shortly, but I want to point out a few things to you before we do so that you notice more than just the fists in the air. Mm-hmm. These men really thought through each demonstration that they made very deliberately. Mm-hmm. For one, you'll see that they removed their shoes to reveal their black socks before taking the platform as a representation of black poverty.
I never noticed that.
I know. You'll see around their necks that they wore beads, and these represent lynching. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you will see a black glove on each of their hands. You'll see that the black glove is on Smith's right hand, and the other glove is on Carlos's left hand. The story that I read was that both men had their own pair of gloves and had intended to wear both gloves, but that Carlos didn't realize until they were taking the podium that he had actually left his pair back at Olympic Village.
Embarrassing.
Yeah. So it was actually Norman, the white Australian athlete that had taken second place, that suggested that Carlos wear one of Smith's gloves. And that is why one is raising his right fist while the other is raising his left fist. Mm-hmm. When asked by the media about this later, Smith said that the difference in which fist was raised was symbolic. He said the right glove was representative of power in Black America. The left was representative of Black unity.
Right. Way to spin that out.
Spin the story.
Yeah, love it.
You will also notice that all three men, including Norman from Australia, were wearing badges for the OPHR. Yeah.
Go Norman.
Right. Okay, so let's check out the picture.
Okay. I mean, it's exactly, you pretty much detailed it, but it's, they're on the podium. There's one in first, one in third, and then little Norman in second. And they're holding their fists up. They're looking down.
Yes, I think that's really important.
And I also never noticed before that they are holding up different fists. Mm-hmm. Never noticed that. So,
and then also you will see that white badge that's on all three of their jackets.
Yeah.
That's for the OPHR.
That. Yeah, never caught that before either. I always, in seeing this photo, assumed that the Australian was just like not in on it, hadn't been part of the conversations, but he clearly was.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. That's something we're going to talk about shortly, that I too had the same impression that he was just there and was not part of the movement, but he was.
Awesome.
Yeah. So this photo is powerful enough. And as always, we post all our pictures to Instagram at #history_podcast.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug if you'd like to check us out on there. But in addition to seeing this picture, I really recommend that everyone watch the full award ceremony on YouTube.
I'll have to do that.
Because it's when you watch it in live action that the power and the gravity of this movement really hits you. Smith and Carlos made this movement during the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner, America's national anthem. When the anthem began to play, they turned toward the United States flag, bowed their heads, and lifted their fist into the air. And when you watch it in live action, that 1 minute and 35-second song sure feels a hell of a lot longer than that.
I'd like to speak to a couple things.
Yeah.
First and foremost, for sure, like, our first dance, I was like, no, we're cutting the song in half.
Yeah.
Because it's a long time when all eyes are on you.
Yes.
A minute can feel like forever.
Yes.
So I mean, on a very different
but I agree with you.
Relate to that. Like, time is
I completely agree with you.
Stretches in moments like that, and could feel like forever. And then secondly, I wonder, and I'd like to know, like, people comment maybe on the Instagram photo or something, or maybe we'll do a poll. I want to know, do people recognize the U.S. anthem, like the Star Spangled Banner? Because there's a couple, like, I think I recognize Great Britain.
Yeah, I recognize Great Britain, Canada, and probably Mexico.
Yeah.
Are the anthems that I know.
Do other countries like recognize and know ours?
Yeah.
Or is it just us?
Yeah. I would actually love to hear
like,
that.
Is it as powerful to other? Obviously, it's not. It's not as meaningful to others as it is to people who live in the U.S.
But is it recognizable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that's a great question. I would love to hear from people if it is.
Random thought,
but I loved it.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, exactly what you just said. When I watched the award ceremony from this Olympics, this competition here, I actually got kind of emotional. It's not an easy thing to do. The bravery that it took to go barefoot and thrust their fists up into the air for the full national anthem and to hold it there through the full national anthem as millions of people around the world watched. It was a lot. I mean, that was a really, really long time to be committed to doing something
and I'm sure
that major.
Especially if you start hearing boos and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it makes you like question, like, am I doing the right thing in this moment or whatever?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's hard to do something like that.
Yeah.
So I know when I first saw the picture from this, very similarly to what you said, I assumed that the Australian athlete didn't have anything to do with this demonstration.
In fact, I assumed he was probably like, these
almost
guys.
Annoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I pointed out, he was also wearing a badge for the OPHR.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Not all that different from the United States. Australia was also in the midst of their own awakening regarding racial discrimination, with policies beginning in 1901 and some running all the way through 1973. Australia was under the legislation of White Australia policy, which essentially halted all non-European immigration into the country and further limited the rights of non-white people there. In demonstration of his protest of racism within his own country, Norman stood in solidarity with his fellow athletes. Hey everyone, we are so excited to share with you about Macy's Wine Shop. Yes, it is that Macy's. Macy's has launched their very own wine shop, which includes full-size, delicious wines curated by their experts coming from renowned wine regions, which include our home state of California and beyond. You can select exactly what type of wine you are looking for. Do you love reds? Do you love whites? Maybe a little bit of both? You can make these personalized selections quickly and easily through the Macy's Wine Shop. What makes Macy's Wine Shop better than any other online wine club is that they deliver quality wines at unmatched price points, all within 1 to 3 business days. Seriously, I ordered my wine on a Monday and had already received them by that following Wednesday. And with our link, you get $50 off a 6-bottle box of Macy's award-winning wines, which is a $95 retail value. Head to the show notes of this episode to access the discount code, or you can head to our Instagram to find the link in our bio. Cheers! The image of Smith and Carlos with their fist in the air would become one of the most iconic and most influential incidents in not only sports history, but in American history.
Yeah.
And in response to this demonstration, the audience booed and hissed. The men were rushed from the stadium with Olympic officials hot on their heels. Shortly after what Olympic officials deemed to be too much of a political statement for a setting that is generally intended to be apolitical.
I think the Nazis would disagree with that.
I'm so glad you said that. That's what I'm just about to say.
Like, literally, the Olympics were their political statement.
I am thrilled, in fact, that you said that, because no, that was fabulous timing. So for this particular incident, the 1968 one, the president of the International Olympic Committee, Avery Brundage, had ordered for the suspension of Smith and Carlos because this was too political of a statement. But going directly to what you just said, I find this interesting because Brundage, who had served as the president of the United States Olympic Committee during the 1936 Games had raised no objections to the Nazi salutes that were used there.
Well, absolutely not. Why would he?
It's just curious because that does feel like a political statement to me. Anyway.
Sorry, I just wanted everybody to know that, like, while I do see Rachel's notes in front of me, that was purely just coincidence.
Yeah. Well, it always is. You're reading along as I'm reading along. You're not jumping ahead a paragraph. You always do that.
I love it.
I know. Is it that you read my mind or you know history so well? Both. Potentially both.
Probably the former.
Many called for the suspension of Smith and Carlos, but the U.S. Olympic Committee decided not to do this and instead eventually expelled both of them from the games. The response Smith and Carlos received once they returned to the United States wasn't much more favorable. They were vilified in the media. One particular article from Time magazine said, quote, "Faster, higher, stronger is the motto of the Olympic Games. Angrier, nastier, uglier better describes the scene in Mexico City last week," unquote. Gross.
What was ugly about what they did?
That's exactly it. I find it so inaccurate when we're talking about a peaceful, silent demonstration that didn't hurt or harm anyone in any way.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't.
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't disturbing. It wasn't
They let
harmful.
the national anthem go if someone wasn't looking directly at, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like they would never know it was happening.
It was a peaceful, silent demonstration.
Yes.
They were called, quote, "a couple of black-skinned stormtroopers,"
Ew.
unquote. They were called hateful and immature.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very immature, right?
Totally
Like
immature.
I find that to be like honestly the most mature demonstration available. The athletes faced death threats and constant surveillance by the FBI. In fact, in 1973, 5 years after the 1968 Olympics, when an FBI agent was still outside of Carlos's door, Carlos leaned out and asked the agent if he'd like to come in for a cup of coffee.
I know.
Carlos said of this exchange, quote, he said the rules of surveillance dictated that he was not permitted to actually enter my house and have coffee with me. I asked if it was against regulations for me to bring 2 hot cups out to the car, and he paused and said no. Unquote. So then he did. I tell this story to demonstrate really just how much this just became a way of life for them. A sad and lonely way of life.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Smith and Carlos would eventually return to sports, both playing for the National Football League. Carlos even eventually worked with the 1984 Summer Olympics Organizing Committee.
Wow.
I know. A little bit of progress.
Yeah.
Unexpected progress.
Athletes are just so much more forgiving than I am. Maybe that's not... I guess I shouldn't say that as a blanket statement, but the ones that we've covered in this podcast, I'm like...
Actually, yeah, you have a good point that the last athlete that we were amazed by their forgiveness was Catherine Switzer, the first woman to officially run the Boston Marathon that we covered 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Yeah, and forgave the dude that literally attacked her while she was running it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Very free. Yeah. Should we seek therapy?
Or... should we be more athletic?
I much prefer the therapy option.
I prefer therapy.
Or should we be more athletic? Would that make us better people? I mean, they do say that when you're like...
You're happier.
You're happier when you're physically healthy. I
prefer therapy.
Yeah, I prefer the therapy.
Yeah.
Australian silver medalist Peter Norman, however, would not have a similar fate. For his part in the demonstration, Norman was nearly entirely ostracized from the sporting community. He was vilified in the media and was rejected from the 1972 Summer Olympics despite qualifying numerous times.
And again, this doesn't make sense to me because, obviously he was a part of it in that he supported them, he talked about it with them, he wore the pin, but he did nothing that somebody else wouldn't.
Yeah, I would say us with hindsight looking at it nowadays didn't even realize he was involved in the movement until we did the research.
Yeah.
But no, Australia was pissed at him. Even when the Summer Olympics were hosted in Sydney, Australia in 2000, Norman was not invited to participate. When Norman passed away in 2006, Smith and Carlos both served as pallbearers at his funeral.
Oh, kill me.
I know.
That's sweet and lovely.
Yeah. In 2012, Norman would receive a formal apology from the Australian House of Representatives and would also receive a posthumous Order of Merit award from the Australian Olympic Committee.
Too little, too late.
Too little, too late.
Whatever.
Smith and Carlos would also be recognized in more recent years for their role in the 1968 demonstration. There's now a statue at San Jose University where Smith and Carlos were once students that shows them standing barefoot on a winner's podium, fist in the air. It's kind of a neat statue to see, actually, if you wanted to check it out. If you just Google like the San Jose 1968 Black Power Salute statue, I find it's interesting.
The Australian.
That's why I find it really interesting. So, I mean, do you want to describe what you're seeing?
Yeah, sorry. I don't want to be rude, but yeah, it's the podium. It's exactly what you see in the photo that we'll share on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
But then Norman's not on his second place post. Which I mean, I just find interesting.
I know. That's what I was saying. I find it interesting because we know that he was a part of the movement, but also it was their movement.
Yeah.
Smith and Carlos's. And also they were the ones that were the students at San Jose. They were the ones that got expelled from the games.
I guess I just I either would have not put the second place thing there at all, or I would have included him.
Yeah, I know. That's why I find it really interesting. I definitely recommend checking it out because it is interesting seeing that like second place space just empty. Yeah. What is really amazing about that statue, though, is just how much it captured exactly what they looked like.
100%.
Like, it almost looks like a still photo of them.
It even got that one guy, his arm wasn't quite as straight up. Right. You know?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. The two men were also invited to the White House by President Barack Obama in 2016. So that's the story. I think maybe one way to kind of wrap it up, not having a quick reaction to when there is a peaceful demonstration. I mean, and that goes not just for athletes. Like, you know, if anyone is making a peaceful demonstration, take a second, think about, you know, potentially the alternatives. It could not be a peaceful demonstration.
Yeah. There's a part of me that understands that people are like, it's disrespectful to our nation, but why does our nation matter more than
the way that our nation
protesting
treats our people?
Exactly. Why does our nation as a figurative thing matter more than the lives of the people living in it?
I think that is a perfect statement. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of #History.
We will share the picture that we discussed on the episode to our Instagram, and all sources used to put together this episode can be found on our website at #history-pod.com. I almost ran out of breath.
Subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you use. Share about us with your family and friends. And then we'd love it so much if you gave us a rate and review.
And be sure to check us out on Instagram. We are at #history_podcast. We're also on TikTok at #history, all one word.
And come join us over on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you can help support our books and booze supply. You also get access to some behind-the-scenes content, weekly #hangout episodes, an automatic 15% off all merchandise, and we mail you cards and stickers.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Wow.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So first and foremost, thank you to this week's. I have a bubble in my throat.
Water?
Yeah.
That much more evident. Evident. Okay, I need to say that again because then you're going to splice it together and be like, that much more evident. They state hospital is what I almost want to say.
Peter Norman. How would you say that?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not good at Australian.
I was about to do it like with a German accent. Peter Norman.
I have no idea. Australian. I'm bad at all accents, and Australian's probably the worst one.
Peter Norman.
I like that.
Peter Norman.
I feel like that's accurate.
Okay.
Accurate. The star stangled. Stanky. athletes hot on their heels.
Olympic officials.
Thank you. Olympic athletes running after them. Doing 20-second dashes. I feel like I said football weird.
No.
Football league.
Football.
That is how I said it. You'd be amazed who will disappoint you.
Did you just eat the peach?
It was amazing. Seriously, you should do it now. It's so good.